Buenas tardes, amigos, a todos, saludos. Les doy la bienvenida al programa de los miércoles de Historia y Cultura. Ahora tenemos un programa muy especial. Además, les recordamos que este programa es parte del Centro Cultural de México y del proyecto Toltecayo. Se hace todos los miércoles. Los jueves tenemos una charla virtual de escritura y literatura dirigida por la compañera Maciel, y va a tener este evento para mañana de 7 a 9. Ahí está la invitación, ahí está el código. Esto se pasa en las redes. Va a invitar al señor Sergio Sánchez Santamaría, que es uno de los mejores grabadores de México. No se lo pierdan para mañana. Muy bien. Entonces, pues ahorita le damos la bienvenida a Checo. Me estaba diciendo que sí se pronuncia su nombre, Checo. Nos va a platicar la historia de su pueblo. Es una historia contemporánea, me imagino, una historia muy interesante que queremos aprender de primera mano, y lo va a acompañar nuestro compañero Scott en la presentación. Pues, sin más, les dejo los micrófonos. Bienvenidos, compañeros.
Thank you very much. Scott, again, tell them, my Spanish is not 100%. That's why you're translating. So, and I'm not too experienced with these things, these PowerPoints. So this is one of my first time. So if I don't do it too well, apologies to everyone. I hope we can all of us learn something together here.
Entonces voy a ayudar a Checo. Entonces su español está un poco limitado, y también es la primera vez que usa estos programas específicos en la computadora. Entonces ojalá que nos vaya bien a todos y que todos aprendamos.
Okay. So is it okay to start?
Yeah, empecemos.
Okay. So I know this is modern history, but I think I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about ancient history, just of how it follows the modern history. So first things first, Ami, go ahead and tell them that, please.
Entonces se trata de la historia moderna, pero hay que dar un poco de trasfondo histórico de la historia antigua.
So the Kurds, you can go to the next page, please.
Okay.
I think it's just a picture.
Right, it's not moving. Hang on. Why isn't it?
Is it because? Okay.
Ahí está.
But we want the next one. Hang on, let me try something different.
Is it because I'm on it too on my computer as well?
No, I don't think so, because Scott has the sharing option right now, unless you're sharing at the same time.
I'm not sure.
No, but I think Scott is the only one. So he's going to figure it out right now.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Actually, perdón, voy a intentar algo. Voy a ver si se puede arreglar.
But you can continue speaking if you want, Checo, while he get the other one.
Okay, so the word Kurd has been known for about like over 3,000 years. It used to be like ancient history, Cordouen or Carduchia or any of these, and there's like words of it. The word Kurd or anything similar, back in the Roman Empire and in Greece, in Persian, and in very ancient history. Like there's known about it.
Hey, I think my computer was just freezing. Creo que se estaba congelando, pero ahora está funcionando. It's working now.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah.
The Kurdistan, the Kurdish people are the same. I don't know if my English nice. Medos people from the old history. When you learn about the imperial from Medos and Persas. Persas are Iranian people, and Medos, I think, because I was learning, was people from Kurdistan. Some Kurdish people are in Macedonia, Albania, Turkey, Armenia.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
okay.
So basically, the Median Empire.
Exactly.
That was about 2,700 years ago, and that was an empire that was included many ethnic groups. So it was included the Persians, the Kurds, and others. So we say our ancestors were the Medes, but other people in the Middle East who are Iranic. Iranic means Aryans. Anybody?
Yeah.
Vamos a darle tiempo a la traducción.
Entonces, bueno, las raíces de los kurdos vienen con el Imperio Medo y hace 2,700 años estaba el Imperio Medo o los Medos. Y dentro de este imperio había diferentes etnias. Había persas, había kurdos y eran iránicos, o sea, de Irán.
Okay. So for instance, like I'm sure a lot of people know in the Second Testament, they talk about the 3 wise men, and one of the wise men, he was the Magi king, Magi. He was from the Median Empire. So Magi or Kurmanji is also the language of the Kurds. So Magi goes to Kurmanji, which is us, the Kurds. So that's according to scripture, just so people like know more about it.
Entonces los Reyes Magos, uno de ellos venía del Imperio Medo. Entonces los Reyes Magos o Magi o Kurmanji, creo que Kurmanji es la lengua que hablaban los kurdos.
Okay. Like the word Kurd means like nomad, because we're mainly nomadic people, sheep herders. We move around through the Middle East, through our mountains, so we don't stay in one area.
Entonces la palabra kurdo significa nómada, porque éramos nómadas, pastores, movíamos mucho por la región.
Okay, so we come from the Indo-European family language. Indo-European means anybody who has this language that is originally mostly from India, for instance, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Persia, Iran, the Germanic languages, all those are considered the Indo-European languages, Indo-European ethnic, and we Kurds are part of it. And you can go to the next one, please.
Y lingüísticamente, la lengua es de la familia indo-europea.
Okay, so for instance, this is the Median Empire. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. So it includes like most of the Middle East. There's Babylonia. So we're talking about like biblical, just so they have an idea of what's going on. And then on the right, this is the Ahura Mazda. This is the kind of like the old religion of the Median Empire.
Entonces así se ve en el mapa lo que era Media o el Imperio Medo, como hace 2 o 3 mil años, como en tiempos bíblicos, y a la derecha se ve Ahura Mazda, que viene de la religión que tenían en el imperio.
Okay, now if you go to the next one, please. So here you basically could see the Indo-European language tree. So of course there's also English, Spanish, they branch into the European one. The Indo-Iranian is to the left one. And if you look at the lower left corner next to Persian, there's Kurdish. So basically what is this saying? That our language, you know, for instance, the word new, you know, like a new car. In German, it's neu. In Spanish, it's nuevo. In Kurdish, is new. So that means it comes from the same root. Just so I can tell you guys like how similar it is, how like close everybody is together.
Entonces, así se ve la familia lingüística indoeuropea y hay muchos cognados. Ahí se ubica el kurdo cerca del pérsico. Y hay cognados, por ejemplo, new, la palabra inglesa new o en español nuevo. En alemán es neu y en kurdo es new.
Okay, next, please. So the Kurds have several kingdoms in the past 1,000 years. You know, like especially one of the famous ones, Salah ad-Din or Saladin. I'm sure everybody knows. He was the one who wanted like all religions in Jerusalem to be at peace. He was like one. It was like very controversial, of course, at that time, and he tried to get all the religions be peaceful in there, but it didn't work out because of the French Duke, and it hasn't been peaceful since that time.
Entonces, ha habido varios reinos y regiones independientes a lo largo de esta historia. Y, por ejemplo, Saladino, él era kurdo y durante el Imperio Otomano, él quería que todas las religiones convivieran en paz. Y fue algo muy controvertido porque todos iban a coexistir, pero intervino el duque francés para que hubiera guerras entre las diferentes religiones. Y desde ese periodo no había habido paz entre estos grupos.
Of course, this is during the Crusades. I'm sure people know that.
Durante las cruzadas.
Okay. So the Kurds are genetically, they consider Iranian people. Like for instance, the word Iran means the land of the Aryans, but Iranian doesn't mean Persian people. It means everybody who speaks the Iranian language, which includes Kurdish, Azeri, Afghani, Balochs, you know, a lot of people. So they are genetically close to them, to Armenian people of the Caucasus. You know, so just talking in terms of similarities, they are not Arab, they are not Turk, and they are not Persian. So they got their own separate ethnicity, but at the same time, because of the language, they're genetically the same.
Entonces, Irán significa la tierra de los arios. Y luego, genéticamente, los kurdos son iraníes. Es decir, que lingüísticamente la lengua es muy parecida. Y otros grupos kurdos, los balucos, los pérsicos, también los armenios, diferentes pueblos del Cáucaso que pertenecen a este grupo cultural lingüístico, pero los kurdos no son árabes, no son turcos, ni tampoco son pérsicos.
Okay. So I think someone asked if there's if Kurds are Asians, or we considered part of the Asian continent, so we are considered Asian. But there's also Kurds. I mean, in Afghanistan, in Kazakhstan, in Russia. You know, just for info. I mean, you know, from the past even until now.
Entonces, salió una pregunta de que si son asiáticos los kurdos, y dijo, pues nos encontramos en el continente asiático. También hay kurdos en Kazajstán, Rusia, Afganistán, esparcidos en diferentes partes.
So, se puede decir que son Caucasian, no asiáticos.
No,
¿No?
pero los the Caucasian people are also considered Asian, because Caucasia is in the
Oh.
continent of Asia.
Mhm.
Sí,
Yeah.
el Cáucaso, la sierra del Cáucaso se encuentra en Asia.
Yeah.
Entonces, la gente, pues ese nombre para europeos no tiene mucho sentido, pero técnicamente los caucásicos son asiáticos si provienen del Cáucaso.
I mean, in my opinion, you know, according to science, there is no such thing as race, only the human race, but there is different ethnicities. So in government papers, when people, for instance, ask me or ask us, like, what race you are, I never really put it. I focus more on, like, this is the ethnicity. It was, you know, that's why, you know, like, differentiation between regions versus race versus ethnicity. It's all very arbitrary, you know.
Entonces, científicamente no existen estas razas, solo existe la raza humana. Por eso se habla de las etnias. Y podemos ver, pues, las etnias, las regiones para ubicarnos. Y también dijo como que cuando le dan formularios para que dé su raza, como que no está seguro en qué poner porque no se identifica con esos términos.
If you go to the next one, please. So the Kurds, as in modern time, for instance, we're talking about in the past 100 to now, 100 years to now.
Entonces nos estamos acercando al siglo pasado.
Okay, so the Kurds, or they live in a region called Kurdistan, which is a geopolitical region, basically.
Entonces los kurdos viven en Kurdistán, lo cual es una región geopolítica.
Yeah. So, so this is going to be a little bit confusing. So if you go to the next one, please. So in the upper left picture, people should look.
Entonces, arriba, a la izquierda,
Okay, so the Kurds live in 4 different countries. And in those 4 countries, every little bit part of it, we consider a region called Kurdistan. It's basically where the Zagros Mountains are. It's very mountainous region. That's where we live.
entonces Kurdistán está dentro de las fronteras de 4 diferentes países y Kurdistán corresponde con la Sierra Zagros y es una región bastante montañosa.
Okay, so for instance, in Turkey or southeast Turkey, we Kurds call Bakuriya Kurdistan or northern Kurdistan. There about 20 to 25 million Kurds live there.
Entonces, en el sur de Turquía es nuestro norte de Kurdistán. Ahí viven unos, bueno, la Turquía, el sureste de Turquía, viven unos 20 a 25 millones de kurdos.
Yeah. So the same thing with Iran, Northwest, we call Rojhelat, East Kurdistan with 12 million, and Iraq, 8 million, and Syria with 3 to 5 million. So altogether is about 40 to 45 million people. There is no exact, number, because the government, obviously, the respective government don't want the truth to be out there. So you can tell them that, please.
Entonces, en el noroeste de Irán, que es el este del Kurdistán, hay unos 12 millones de kurdos. En Irak hay unos 8 millones. Y en Siria hay como 3 a 5 millones de kurdos. Entonces son como unos 40 millones de kurdos que viven en Kurdistán. Y los números no son exactos. Una parte de esto es que los 4 gobiernos han suprimido esta etnia bastante y no quieren que se reconozca que existe este pueblo ahí.
If you'd go to the next one, please. So these are the religions of Kurdistan. So most Kurds are Muslim, and I wanted to say that at the beginning, before the Islamic invasion, that Kurds were mostly Zoroastrian and Yazidis, which is basically old Median Empire religion, and also like ancient Kurdish religions.
Entonces, antes de la invasión islámica, la mayoría practicaban el zoroastrianismo y también eran yazidíes, que eran las religiones que existían antes.
Yeah.
Y la mayoría de los kurdos hoy en día son musulmanes.
Yes. So there is Sunni Muslim, which is the majority, and then there's also a Shia minority.
Entonces, la mayoría de ellos sunitas, y pues también hay una minoría de shias.
If you go to the next picture, please. Okay, so we also have, so Yazidi, Zoroastrian, Yarasani. We have about 200,000 Kurdish Jews. We have Baha'ism. We have about 150,000 Christians, and Mandaism. So we have, the Kurds are as colorful in religion, ethnicity, and look as it can be for any nation.
Entonces, aquí se miran las diferentes fes que existen dentro del pueblo kurdo. Entre ellos hay unos 200,000 judíos, 150 cristianos, y Kurdistán es tan diverso como cualquier otro país.
Yeah, so if you go to the next one, please. So we have a Kurdish language, but our Kurdish language we have a few dialects. Some dialects I cannot understand because they are so different to me. I would compare it as to like Spanish and Portuguese and Italian. They are, yes, you could understand each other, but at the same time, they're not good enough that you can have a conversation.
Entonces hay varios dialectos principales de la lengua kurda, y para mí es difícil comprender algunos dialectos y 100%, y me parece comparable con las similitudes entre, por ejemplo, español, italiano, portugués. Se podrían comunicar más o menos, pero sería difícil tener una conversación.
Yeah. So probably 80% of speakers speak Kurmanji, which is what I speak, and then Sorani, we have the next like maybe 15%, and the rest, Zazaki, Gorani, Lori, is basically like in minorities, just just anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million or so.
Entonces, 80% de los kurdo hablantes hablan el kurmanji, y es lo que hablo, y luego hay como 15% sorani, y luego los otros dialectos, Zazaki, Gorani, Lori, hay menos de ellos, quizás 500,000 o a 2 millones de hablantes de esos dialectos.
If you'd go to the next one, please. So basically, this is when things started to kind of like get worse for the Kurdish people after World War I.
Luego, después de la Primera Guerra Mundial, es cuando las cosas empezaron a ponerse malas para los kurdos.
So before nation states, you know, because everywhere in the world, people started having nation state, getting away from kingdoms, monarchies, and regions, going to nation state. You know, the same thing happened in the Middle East under British and French rule.
Entonces había un aumento del nacionalismo, de la nación-estado moderna, y lo mismo sucedió en el Medio Oriente después del acuerdo que hicieron después de la Primera Guerra Mundial, porque se estaban alejando de las monarquías y los reinos que antes había.
So after World War I, when the British beat Germany and the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And then in 1916, the French and the British did what they called the Sykes-Picot Agreement, named after the British and French general. So in 1916.
Entonces, el Imperio Otomano se había aliado con Alemania contra Francia, aliada con Gran Bretaña. Luego perdieron los otomanos y los alemanes, y los dos generales inglés, tanto francés, se pusieron de acuerdo, hicieron el acuerdo Sykes-Picot en 1916.
So in 19, they established what they called the Treaty of Sèvres, which is in France. And if you go to the next picture, please. Next slide. So looking at the upper right corner and those two pictures, you see in the 1920 treaty, we were supposed to have a small area called Kurdistan for the Kurd established.
Entonces, en el Tratado de Sèvres, es un lugar en Francia, habían establecido un pedazo de territorio para Kurdistán.
If you go back, please. So then came the Treaty of Lausanne. Lausanne is a town in Switzerland, 1923. All the people, like for instance, the Turks, the Persians, and the Arab, Iraq and Syria, did not want to give territory to the Kurds. So they had a deal with the French and the British in order to take that away from the Kurds. So in that small city of Lausanne, they signed, with a stroke of a pen, Kurdistan was divided into 4 countries, basically. You can go to the next picture.
Entonces, en 1923, en el Tratado de Lausanne, es un pueblo en Suiza. Los pérsicos, árabes y turcos se reunieron con los europeos y hicieron el plan para, no querían ceder este territorio a los kurdos. Entonces, entre ellos, dibujaron un mapa nuevo en 1923.
And I just want to show them in the lower left corner is basically in the 1900 is like traditional, Kurdish clothes, and on the right side, one of the first woman doctors from, this was in Syria, Damascus, and the left one is from India, the center one from Japan, and the right one, she is a Kurd from Syria. They all are, you know, MDs, doctor.
Entonces, abajo a la izquierda se ven los trajes tradicionales, como en 1900 por ahí. Luego la otra foto son 3 mujeres, son doctoras en la medicina. Entonces, una es de la India, la otra de Japón, y la tercera era de Damascus, era una kurda de Siria.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, please. So after that happened, within the next years, rebellions and repressions happened in Bakur or northern Kurdistan, Turkish region. You know, I'm gonna start by, you know, by Turkey and then saying the following 3 countries.
Ok, entonces, pues hubo rebeliones, represiones en Turquía. Voy a empezar hablando sobre Kurdistán en Turquía.
Okay, so in Turkey, instead of calling us, because there was Kemal Mustafa Atatürk, he's considered the father of Turkey. He's a nationalist leader of Turkey. He wanted to make Turkey a one people, one language, one country rule, and Turkey was full of different ethnicities. Like there was easily 10, 20 different ethnicities, religions, and languages, but he wanted to Turkify them all forcefully. And so one of the things he called the Kurds, he called them Mountain Turks, just so they don't use the word Kurd.
Entonces, el líder de Turquía se llamaba Kemal Atatürk y su misión era turquificar el país y prohibió la diversidad cultural, se puede decir. Había como entre unas 10 a 20 diferentes etnias, religiones, etc. Entonces, forzosamente, todos tenían que asimilarse a la identidad nacional turca y su lema era un pueblo, una lengua y un país.
You can go to the next slide, please. So the upper left corner, the flag with the sun and the man is Generalissimo, title Ihsan Nuri Pasha. He started the Khoybun party in 1927 to 1930 to build the Republic of Ararat, which is very close to Armenia in Turkey. And he built a small, like, kind of like nation state of Kurdistan, but it very fast got decimated by the Turks, and he was killed.
Entonces, el señor que sale ahí era el generalísimo, no me acuerdo de su nombre, pero fundó un partido. ¿Cómo se llamaba el generalísimo?
Well, generalissimo is the title. They give it to like absolute general, they say. And his name is Ihsan Nuri Pasha.
Gracias. Y empezó lo que se llamaba la República de Ararat. Y la montaña pues queda cerca de ahí. Y solo duró 3 años, de 1927 a 1930. Y fue totalmente suprimida por el gobierno turco.
Okay. So in 1937 to 1938, there's a region in Kurdistan, Turkey, which is called Dersim. That's where the Zazaki people are. And upper right corner, under Sayyid Riza, his name is Sayyid Riza, a rebellion happened because of the Turkification of Dersim. And the Turkish army started coming and basically eradicated villages and did what the Dersim massacre, bombed them chemically and killed many Kurds. As you see this woman, she's breastfeeding her children, but they were basically like genocided into all of this.
Entonces, entre 1937 y 38 había un lugar que se llamaba Daisen y el pueblo eran los Zazaki y es una foto del señor que se llamaba Seidresa y hubo una masacre, fue un acto de genocidio contra estas personas.
Over 40,000 people basically died.
Más de 40,000 murieron.
Next slide, please. So now we're moving on to repressions and rebellions in Rojhelat or Kurdistan, Iran.
Ahora vamos a ir a Irán o Rojilat, que es Kurdistán, Irán.
So in 1946, Qazi Muhammad, he built the Republic of Mahabad, and that only lasted 8 months under the Kurdistan Democratic Party of Iran with the help of Mustafa Barzani.
Entonces, en 1946 se creó la República de Mahabad por Qazi Muhammad y se llamaba el Partido del Kurdistán Democrático y también con la ayuda de Mustafa Barzani y solo duró 8 meses.
Yeah, go to the next slide, please. So basically, upper right corner in the picture, that's where the Republic of Mahabad was. Basically, that's the name of the city, Mahabad, but it's supposed to be a Kurdistan, and that's the flag, very similar to the other flag of Ararat. And the top picture, the man who's on top, that's Qazi Muhammad, and the one in the light baggy pants, Kurdish clothes, that's Mustafa Barzani, which he has importance in Kurdistan, Iraq.
Entonces, a la derecha, en amarillo, se ve la República de Mahabad. Entonces, Mahabad es la ciudad principal ahí y básicamente coincide con Kurdistán. Y la bandera que usaron se mira similar. Y luego en la foto a la izquierda, el que está parado es Qazi Muhammad y luego enfrente de él, como con los pantalones guangos, es Mustafa Barzani.
Okay. So also in 1979, when Khomeini and came with the Islamic Revolution against the Pahlavi dynasty, basically the monarchs who were put by the British, the Kurds actually supported that Islamic Revolution.
Entonces, y también en Irán, en 1979, cuando se dio la revolución iraní contra la dinastía Pahlavi, o sea, eran los monarcas que los europeos habían puesto en poder, y los kurdos se habían unido con la revolución islámica.
Okay. So once the Islamic Iranian Republic was formed, Khomeini, all the leaders, they started putting fatwa. A fatwa is a religious term in the Quran, meaning it is okay and you will have no sin to kill any Kurds because they basically are an enemy of the state now, because they were scared that the Kurds wanted to have their own state, and because they are different in language and ethnicity.
Entonces, después de ganar el poder, empezaron a emitir varias fatwas. Entonces, una fatwa es una orden religiosa en donde dicen que se puede asesinar a cualquier kurdo, se puede y se debe, porque tienen una lengua diferente, una etnia diferente, quieren su propio territorio y pues así empezaron las fatwas contra los kurdos en Irán.
For instance, Dr. Qasimlo, he got voted in to be be a voice of the Kurds in the assembly, but they denied him that basically. And he was viewed as a muharib, is a Persian word. It's actually Arabic Persian word for war against God, because the state is right. The state comes from God, and anything you say against the state, that means you're going against God. And Dr. Qasimlo fled to Vienna, and in 1989 he got assassinated by Iranian agents.
Entonces, había el doctor Qasimlo, y fue elegido a la asamblea, y era kurdo, pero lo corrieron de la asamblea, aunque había ganado la elección. Y hay un término que utilizan que significa la guerra contra Dios, y lo acusaron de hacer guerra contra Dios por cuestionar las políticas del gobierno, porque había triunfado la revolución islámica. Entonces, según el Estado, era sinónimo con Dios, y no pudo representar en la asamblea, tuvo que exiliarse del país, fue a Europa, donde en 1989 unos agentes iraníes lo encontraron y lo asesinaron.
And also any Kurds that are against the Iranian state in Kurdistan region of Iran who flee to Europe, any lack of important ones, they a lot of them have been assassinated in Europe. Like there's many cases. This is just one of them.
Entonces los kurdos que se refugian en Europa para escaparse de la represión política, hay muchos casos parecidos de kurdos exiliados que después están hallados y asesinados, especialmente los personajes influyentes.
So next slide, please. So this is repressions and rebellions in Kurdistan, Iraq.
Ahora vamos a ir a Irak, Kurdistán, Irak.
So Mustafa Barzani, the one who helped Republic of Mahabad, 1946 created the Kurdistan Democratic Party, and basically he was working with the Shah of Iran, who was ousted at that time, the US and Mossad, Israeli Mossad, against Iraq, basically to topple Iraqi regime.
Entonces Mustafa Barzani, que había fundado el Partido del Kurdistán Democrático en 1946, él estaba trabajando con el Shah de Irán, con los Estados Unidos y también con Mossad en contra de Irak.
So after the US used us, basically they stabbed our bag and left us to die by Iran and Iraq. They end up going both together against the Kurds. They burned 60 villages, over 200,000 displaced. Yeah.
Entonces nos utilizaron los Estados Unidos para ir contra Irán, y luego nos dejaron abandonados en Irán y luego en Irak, y luego los dos países, Irán y Irak, fueron contra nosotros y quemaron unas 60 aldeas.
Okay, so in Iraq, what Saddam Hussein did, the Kurdish regions, he sent Arab people, he sent Arabs in thousands, and he gave them 10,000 dinar. It's at that time, one dinar was $3. So equivalent in 1973, he gave them $30,000. Imagine, to go to the Kurdish region. You have a house, you have land, and they were taken away from the Kurds in order to push the Kurds out of there. That's why they call them 10,000 dinar Arabs.
Entonces, había un programa bajo el régimen de Saddam Hussein en Irak, y él quería deshacer las regiones kurdas. Entonces el plan era dar una beca de 10,000 dinares a los árabes para que fueran a los lugares kurdos y para que hubiera árabes dentro de las poblaciones kurdas. Y un dinar valía como $3, entonces habría sido como 30,000 dólares como beca de ir y mudarse a una comunidad kurda para desplazarlos, y se daba ese apodo, los árabes de los 10,000 dinares.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, please. So in the upper left corner, that's Mustafa Barzani, and on the right corner, that's his son, Masoud Barzani. This is a Barzani clan, and on the one next to Masoud Barzani, that's Jalal Talabani, another tribe. He formed another party. So to which Kurdistan, Iraq has been ruled by basically these two clans, and at the beginning they were supposed to help the Kurdish cause, but now they've been just ruling in the interest of both of their clans.
Entonces a la izquierda está Barzani, y luego a la derecha está su hijo, Masur Barzani, y a su lado está Jalal Talabani. Y en Irak, en el norte de Irak, antes era casi prohibido ser kurdo, pero ahora, después de la intervención de los Estados Unidos, ahora los kurdos tienen una zona en el norte de Irak y supuestamente iban a estar libres, pero se hizo un acuerdo entre los dos clanes, los clanes de Barzani y Talabani, y juntos tienen pues un régimen. Es como un monopolio donde controlan esa región en el norte de Irak.
Exactly. Thank you for adding that. So during the Iraq-Iran War, 1987 to 1989, while both of those countries were fighting each other, the Kurds in the middle basically got gassed by Saddam Hussein. It was called the Anfal campaign. Another term from the Quran, kind of like a holy war against Kurds, because the Kurds are so different, you know, even though they've been forcibly turned Islamic. Over 2,000 villages destroyed, over 190,000 civilians dead, and in one village alone called Halabja, over 5,000 civilians died by mustard gas. And the lower left picture and lower right picture, you can show them.
Entonces, entre 1987 a 89 se dio la guerra entre Irak e Irán. Y mientras los dos países estaban peleando, los kurdos quedábamos en medio y fuimos atacados por los dos lados. Echaron en Irak, Hussein echó gases, mostaza. Había una campaña que se llamaba la campaña Anfal y quemaron unas 2,000 aldeas. Quedaron unos 190 civiles muertos, y había una aldea como el incidente más infame. Murieron más de 5,000 civiles en una aldea que se llamaba Halabja, porque Hussein echó gas mostaza a la gente de Halabja.
And that's the picture right there, baby with the dad.
Y así se ve la foto que después quedó inmortalizada con la estatua. Es un bebé con su papá, y habían muerto del gas mostaza en Halabja.
Next, please. So during the Gulf War, they established, because of these attacks, the 34th parallel. There was a no-fly zone, and the Kurds of Iraq basically had their autonomy. And from there, from the 1991 till now, two parties run by two clans are running that land.
Entonces se dio la guerra del Golfo Pérsico en 1991. Después de esa guerra se estableció la zona de exclusión área en el paralelo 34, o sea, es decir, la sección norteña de Irak quedaba bajo gobierno kurdo, pero, o sea, son dos clanes o dos partidos que controlan todo en esa región.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So now we go to repressions and rebellions in Rojava, Kurdistan, Syria, where I'm from, just for the info.
Entonces ahora vamos a represiones, rebeliones en Rojava, en esta parte del Kurdistán, Siria, de donde soy yo.
Okay, so before the 60s, Syria was known the Syrian Republic. But then when the Ba'ath Party came, and with them Hafez al-Assad, the father of today's Bashar al-Assad, they changed it to the Syrian Arab Republic. But that is wrong, since in Syria there's many ethnicities, not only Kurds, but there's Assyrians, there's different types of like Christian ethnicities over there, and so on and so forth.
Entonces, antes de los 1960, Siria se llamaba la República Siria, pero después de este movimiento cambiaron el nombre a la República Árabe Siria, lo cual no es cierto porque hay muchas diferentes etnias, hay diferentes grupos cristianos, hay muchos asirios que étnicamente no son árabes, y kurdos y otros grupos en Siria.
Yeah. So one of the infamous things that happened in the Kurdish region, it's called Amude. In 1960, there was a movie theater burning, and 283 children died, and it has become like by facts that it was intentionally done to repress Kurds. Also in 1962, 120,000 Kurds were stripped of their citizenship, and until now, their offsprings, even their children, have no papers. Basically, we are basically illegal immigrants in our own land.
Entonces, en 1960, en el cine de Amude, murieron 283 niños en el cine, y es que lo quemaron adrede para reprimir a los kurdos, y fue un incidente infame. Y en 1962, unos 120,000 kurdos perdieron su ciudadanía. Entonces, somos inmigrantes indocumentados dentro de nuestro propio país.
So once again, when Hafez al-Assad came with his Ba'ath Party, he wanted to do Arabization. Just like in Turkey, they wanted to do Turkification. Here, they wanted to do Arabization, just like also in Iraq. So he did what they call the Arab Belt. So that he put a bunch of Arab people, he took lands from the Kurds, homes from the Kurds, and he put Arabs instead there in order to force the Kurds to get out. He economically deprived the Kurdish region in order for them to move to Arab cities in order to mix, and they lose their culture, language, names, culture, like music, our Nowruz, New Year, all of these were not allowed.
Entonces, el partido Ba'ath en Siria tenía la agenda de arabización. Entonces, empezó el programa que se llamaba el Cinturón de Arabización, en donde mandaban a árabes a mudarse a las regiones kurdas, y también había un complejo de políticas punitivas que también deprimía la economía y los impedía que participar en la economía los kurdos. Entonces, forzosamente se tenían que ir a otra parte y a la misma vez había prohibición de todo lo kurdo, la cultura, la lengua, los nombres, la música. También Newroz es su día festivo más importante. Eso también fue prohibido.
Next slide, please. So the upper left corner is a monument of the pictures in Almude of the children who died, and lower, the two other pictures is Nowruz, which is basically for us March 21st. We dance around a fire, we jump over a fire. It represents spring and new beginnings, new day. It means new day.
Entonces, a la izquierda arriba se ve un monumento al cine de Amude y ahí salen retratos de los niños fallecidos en ese incendio. Y las otras dos imágenes son de Newroz. Y en la primavera se festeja el 21 de marzo y representa un comienzo nuevo y se hacen fogatas y luego saltamos por arriba de la fogata para representar este nuevo tiempo.
Next slide, please. So again, our festivities like Nowruz is basically banned, and every time we celebrate it, basically people die there because the government comes and starts shooting at us. Arab people, when they see us, they throw rocks at us, stuff like that. In 1986 was a famous one to where a bunch of people got killed in Afrin, and then the Syrian government they made March 21st. They just made a new holiday calling it Mother's Day in order to tell people when Kurds go celebrate, oh, they're going for Mother's Day. It's not Nowruz.
Entonces, cada vez que se festeja Newroz, hay choques violentos, como cuando nos ven árabes festejando Newroz, nos avientan piedras y pues hay mucho acoso, hay mucha violencia y también en 1986 en Afrin hubo pues una masacre de los festejantes de Newroz y aparte lo que hizo el gobierno es que declaró que el 21 de marzo era el Día de las Madres, como para quitar ese día del calendario para negar el festival tradicional de Newroz.
In 2004, there was a soccer game in our city, Qamishlo, and it was a team against an Arab team, Deir ez-Zor. So the police already had an arrangement with that team to create a fight, and the police came and the riot erupted in that city for like a few weeks, and over 30 Kurds died. And from there on, like they toppled the president's statue, and from there on, like people revolted more and more until the 2011 Syrian civil war, where it actually exploded.
Entonces, en una ciudad que se llama Qamishlo, hubo un partido de fútbol de un equipo kurdo contra un equipo árabe. Y el equipo árabe atacó al otro equipo y los policías estaban involucrados también apoyando a los árabes. Entonces se dieron disturbios en Qamishlo hasta pues mucha gente salía a las calles, tumbaron la estatua del presidente y pues seguía este conflicto por varios años hasta 2011, cuando todo estalló en la guerra civil siria.
Next slide, please. So here where we come to the Rojava Revolution, basically for the past 9 years, with at the forefront of this revolution being solely women. So Rojava Revolution equals a women's revolution.
Entonces, es cuando empezó la revolución en Rojava y el frente de la revolución son las mujeres. Entonces, la revolución en Rojava es la revolución de la mujer.
Next slide, please. So in order to understand how Rojava, Kurdistan, Syria was so well organized when a vacuum was created, we have to go back to what happened in 1978 with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or the PKK.
Vamos a volver a 1978, el Partido de los Trabajadores del Kurdistán, o el PKK.
So in 1978, Abdullah Öcalan and a few of his comrades created the PKK for more cultural rights in Baku, in Kurdistan region of Turkey, not only for Kurds, but for everyone. So when PKK was formed, it was formed by mostly Kurds, but also by a few Turks and other minorities. And especially, it was also created by 3 or 4 women as well.
Entonces, en 1978, Abdullah Öcalan y otros compañeros crean el PKK por más derechos culturales en Bakú y en Turquía para los kurdos, y querían derechos culturales para todas las etnias, no exclusivamente los kurdos, y de hecho había bastantes turcos y pues gente de diferentes etnias, gente diversa dentro de los fundadores del PKK, y también había muchas mujeres que participaron en la fundación del partido.
So the PKK had a strict, and still have to some extent, a strict Marxist, Leninist ideology that they have changed in recent years, but their goal was to build an independent socialist Kurdistan from all 4 countries. And it was a radical leftist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, very secular, and it was basically there is a motto in the PKK, and Abdullah Öcalan, the leader, said that there is no revolution without a women's revolution, just to enunciate the importance of women in this party.
Entonces empezó como un partido marxista-leninista, y su objetivo era fundar un Kurdistán independiente, socialista, en Kurdistán. Entonces era radical, de la izquierda, anticapitalista, antiimperialista, muy, muy secular. Y también la mujer estaba en el centro de este partido, y Öcalan dijo, no hay revolución sin la revolución de la mujer.
So after trying to do it peaceful, with like politics, when they created the party, it did not work, obviously. Then in 1984, after the PKK, they had bases in Syria and Lebanon. After training, they started the guerrilla warfare against the Turkish state, and with the motto of Berkhodan Jiana, which means resistance is life.
Entonces, en 1984 empezó la guerrilla. No podían seguir pacíficamente, y tenían el lema, no lo voy a pronunciar bien.
It's okay.
Suedan Giane,
Yeah.
que es la guerrilla contra el Estado turco.
It means resistance is life, basically.
Significa la resistencia es vida.
Like that's the motto that they going by.
Es la lema con que empezaron.
Yeah. So next slide, please. So basically, Öcalan is lower left corner, along with two women comrades. The left one is Sakine Cansız, and she was one of the founders also of the PKK.
Entonces, abajo a la izquierda se mira Öcalan con dos compañeras y arriba a la izquierda es
No.
Cansız.
Yeah, it's the woman next to him, to the left, the woman.
Perdón, la mujer a la izquierda de Abdullah Öcalan es Sakine Cansız, quien era también fundadora del PKK.
And also the PKK guerrillas, there's numbers around 5,000 of them, and 45% to 50% are women.
Entonces hay unos 5,000 guerrilleros del PKK y como 45 a 50% de ellos son mujeres.
And if they look at the lower right picture, those are basically the head. There is no like president or anything. It's basically a council of people. So if you look at the lower right picture with the PKK flag, like there's a lot of women represented, you know, to be all inclusive.
Entonces no tienen ningún presidente, pero la foto a la derecha para abajo es el consejo del PKK y si se fijan en la foto se ve bastante representación femenina en el consejo.
Next slide, please. So in chronological order, so basically 1976 to 80, Turkey's coup happened, and they went very strong against minorities, especially against the Kurds. 1981 to 84, many Kurds died in prison for speaking their language. There was a famous quote in Turkish prisons. It was, if you speak Turkish, speak a lot. And if basically meaning, if you don't speak Turkish, don't speak at all. And so families could not talk to each other. There was a bunch of hunger strikes, and that went on for 3 years. Go ahead.
Entonces, 1976 a 80 se dio un golpe de Estado en Turquía y en 1981 a 84 había muchísimos kurdos en la prisión y muchos murieron en la prisión. Y dentro de la prisión tenían un dicho, si hablas kurdo, habla mucho, que quería decir...
no, habla tú.
Si no hablas turco, no hables.
Okay, yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah. So basically, if you speak Turkish, speak a lot. Yeah, there you said it right. Thank you. So basically, in jail, they did hunger strikes in order as a resistance, as a protest. So one of the most famous one was Mazlum Doğan, and he actually, in order for his comrades not to give in to the mistreatment of the Turkish soldiers, he burned himself with 3 matches on Nowruz Day, our New Year, and he did it, of course, with fire, and then he hanged himself and then burned his whole cell, and that represents, because the Kurds, fire and the sun is very close to us. It's in our culture and our religion.
Entonces había muchas huelgas de hambre dentro de los prisioneros kurdos y un caso famoso un caso famoso, Mazlum Dogan. Él se suicidó en su celda y se ahorcó y a la misma vez se quemó, se incendió. Y era muy simbólico porque lo hizo en Newroz y es el día donde se festeja el sol y el fuego.
So a great uprising happened in those times. Over 40,000 people died from this conflict, mostly civilians, and over 5,000 villages in Kurdistan, Turkey, got eradicated.
Y empezó una gran rebelión en Bakur. Más de 40,000 murieron y también más de 5,000 aldeas fueron quemadas.
And at that time, most of the radical left of Turkey and the Kurds got their inspiration from like Che Guevara, Cuba, Angola, Vietnam, like their resistance against imperialism. And that's how they also got influenced, basically.
Y durante este periodo, la mayor influencia de los kurdos venía de Che Guevara, la Revolución Cubana, Angola, Vietnam. Eran estas luchas en contra del imperialismo.
Next slide, please. So, we have a lot of martyrs. So basically, the people who died, they revere them almost as saints. So upper left corner, that's Zilan. She actually, going against Turkish soldiers, she exploded herself and killed about 180 Turkish soldiers.
Entonces, tenemos muchos mártires, son casi como santos. Para nosotros, por ejemplo, la mujer a la izquierda, arriba, se llama Zilan, y ella se sacrificó porque se puso una bomba y se explotó entre una muchedumbre de soldados turcos y ella mató a unos 180 soldados así.
In upper right, Sakine Johnson, the founders of the PKK, the one with the red hair, she got assassinated in 2011 in Paris, France, by undercover Turkish secret service, basically.
Entonces a la derecha, no me acuerdo de su nombre.
Sakine.
Ella, la pelirroja, en 2011, ella estaba en París y fue asesinada por agentes turcos.
Yeah. So, because she was a fan of the PKK and whatnot.
Y era una fundadora del PKK.
Okay. And those are some of the hunger strikers, Kurds and Turks, always the one that got killed in prison, basically, sacrificed themselves as a form of resistance.
Y ellos son los huelguistas de hambre, kurdos y turcos que se sacrificaron en la prisión, en la huelga de hambre.
Okay. So next slide, please. So Abdullah Öcalan, or his nickname Apo, which means uncle, he got captured in 1999 in Kenya with the help of the CIA and Mossad.
Entonces Abdullah Öcalan, y le dicen el apodo Apo, lo cual significa tío, fue aprendido en Kenia con la ayuda de la CIA y Mossad.
Okay. And he has been imprisoned on a prison island on the island of Imrali for over 21 years. And his importance to the Kurdish, he is revered by millions of people. And whatever he says, basically, if he calls for peace, we will do it. If he calls for war, the party will do it. So he has very important as, for instance, Nelson Mandela for us. And he is basically protected by 1,000 soldiers on this prison island.
Entonces hay una prisión en una isla que se llama Imrali y ahí está Apo encerrado en esa prisión. y hay millones de personas que lo admiran y que lo escuchan. Entonces, si él llama por la paz, le vamos a hacer caso. Si él llama por la guerra, el partido va a seguir sus órdenes. Y está protegido por 1,000 soldados.
He has written over, he called for peace many times, and in jail they almost like killed him with special paint on the wall. This way it seems natural, because if he gets killed intentionally, like all hell will break loose in Turkey. And you can go to the next picture, please.
Entonces ha llamado por la paz muchas veces. También dijo, es como nuestro Nelson Mandela. Y él lo han intentado asesinar, como poner pintura especial en su celda para que se mirara que hubiera muerto como naturalmente, porque o sea, no pueden aguantar, o sea, la gente no va a soportar que lo asesinen.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, please. So here we come to the year 2005 and introduction of democratic confederalism, the ideology he created by reading Murray Bookchin, American Communalist, and other books and other like famous philosophers, and he created what he calls democratic confederalism. Go ahead.
Entonces, en la prisión, Apo se puso a leer mucho, especialmente de un autor norteamericano que se llama Murray Bookchin. Y en 2005, él publica sus ideas y lo que se llama el confederalismo democrático.
So that one was adopted by the PKK in 2005 and throughout the Kurdish political sphere. And it's basically self-organization, direct democracy, self-defense, environmentalism, radical feminism, multiculturalism, decentralization. I mean, you can read it off the chart, but also it's a bottom-up government. It's not a top-down government.
Entonces, este confederalismo democrático fue adoptado por el PKK y también el resto de la esfera política kurda. Y pues aquí se ve la lista. Consiste en la autoorganización, democracia directa, el medioambientalismo, autodefensa, multiculturalismo, y es una democracia directa, o sea, descentralizada.
Next slide, please. So this is Murray Bookchin to the left, and I want to show on the lower right corner, basically what with help of democratic confederalism, they created self-defense forces. These are your neighborhood watch, basically these older ladies, they teach them how to do self-defense in every village, in every street. This way, everybody as a nation and as a people, no matter who you are, they know how to do self-defense. This way, the government can't come and try to take your rights away, basically.
Entonces, a la izquierda, arriba se ve una foto de Murray Bookchin y basándose en sus ideas y el confederalismo democrático, enseñaron, se ve la foto a la derecha, abajo. Esas señoras son parte de un equipo de autodefensa y enseñan la defensa personal a las mujeres y a todos para que todos se puedan defender por donde quiera que se encuentren.
Next slide, please. So for instance, for the past 9 years in Rojava, we have what we call the police is basically a neighborhood watch, is your neighbor. And for the past 9 years, we did not have one accidental police shooting or anything like that.
Entonces, en estas comunidades, la policía básicamente es este grupo de vigilancia y es como una... what was that?
Like neighbor, like basically they're your neighbor.
De vecinos, ¿verdad? Es como una asociación de vecinos. Entonces, pues así mantienen seguridad y no ha habido ni una muerte, así como suceden con los policías.
Next slide, please. So the Syrian civil war, when it happened in 2011, there was a power vacuum. So that's where we go back to Rojava, and that's why, you know, because Öcalan and his ideology was already in Syria since the 80s, so people were organized already all these years. To 2011, once there was a vacuum, those organizations from civil to defense, they took over and already had an organization. It was basically a state within a state, a sub-state.
Entonces, desde 2005 ya estaban desarrollando este programa y cuando se dio la guerra civil siria había un vacío de poder. Entonces, los kurdos ya estaban organizados y podían llenar ese espacio con el confederalismo democrático y pues se pueden llamar como un estado dentro de un estado.
There's about 8 more slides and I'm trying to go quick. I know it's 8:30. I don't know how much time I have, so you let me know.
Ok, entonces quedan como 8 diapositivas más. Como está preocupado por el tiempo.
Está bien, hay que seguir, ¿no? Son las 8:30.
Yeah, it's 8:30, so yeah, we're good.
Okay, I'll go quickly through them. So the organization right away adopted democratic confederalism. It was basically the biggest political experiment in the world, you know, because we have this land now with the people and they just adopted this brand new ideology of democratic confederalism and they built their forces, YPG, YPJ, women and a man force.
Entonces fue el experimento político más grande porque tenían estas ideas abstractas y de repente tuvieron la oportunidad de poner las teorías en práctica y también establecieron YPG y la YPJ. Entonces hay una fuerza de hombres y también una fuerza de mujeres.
So in democratic confederalism, it's mandatory for women to have 45 to 50% of seats in political arena. Not only that, there's also a separate women government that only women can be part of this government to handle all of women's affairs, whether from economic to civilian to education to self-defense.
Entonces, en este sistema, las mujeres tienen que tener por lo menos 50% de los puestos en las arenas políticas. Y aparte hay un gobierno de mujeres en donde solo pueden participar mujeres y se encargan de diferentes asuntos, tanto como economía, como educación, como autodefensa.
Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. So this is how basically democratic confederalism is explained on a sheet. It starts out with your neighborhood, with your village, your commune, talking about, I mean, like 12 families, and then they slowly choose their representative. It depends from what ethnicity, what religion, and every time whether ethnicity or religion, they have to have a male and a female mandatory.
Entonces, así se mira un organigrama de cómo funciona esto. El primer nivel es la comuna o el barrio, la comunidad donde vive uno. Y luego pues hay nivel 2, 3, cuarto y mandan delegados y tiene que haber un delegado hombre, otra delegada mujer, y también garantizan representación de las diferentes etnias de una comunidad dada.
So for instance, we have a president now, president of the party and president of the region. And the president is a male, and we have another president is a female. It's called co-presidency. So we don't have only one president.
Entonces, tenemos un presidente y también tenemos una presidenta. Y de hecho son copresidentes. Entonces, tenemos un presidente o un copresidente y tenemos una copresidenta.
Next, please. So again, all ethnicities, men and women, have to have a seat. And it's a very secular government. Religion and state is definitely not together. And there's also different defense forces. So for instance, if the Christian Assyrian and the Syriacs, they want to have their own forces, they have a right to establish their forces, in enjoyment, under this umbrella. Also, the Armenians have their own forces because they protect their own. They know best how to protect themselves.
Entonces, hay diferentes fuerzas de defensa. Por ejemplo, los armenios tienen una fuerza de defensa porque ellos saben bien cómo defenderse a sí mismos. Y también si los demás grupos como cristianos, asirios o siriacos, si quieren formar sus propias fuerzas de defensa, también están en su derecho a hacer eso.
You can go to the next. So this is some of the fighting forces, the YPJ and YPG, women and men forces. The right one is the Christian Syriac. It's written in Syriac. And then the center one is basically everyone is included, the Syrian Democratic Forces. And they make sure it's kind of like Switzerland. They have it in 3 different languages in order to make it all inclusive for every ethnicity and every religion.
Entonces, a la izquierda se ven las fuerzas de defensa kurdas, tanto la fuerza de hombres como la de mujeres. A la derecha se ve el logotipo del Consejo Militar Siriaco cristiano. Son cristianos de la etnia, pues son siriacos, sería su etnia. Y en medio tenemos un logotipo y parece mucho a Suiza, porque están las 3 lenguas. Y es como se unen todos.
Next slide, please. So again, I can't stress enough the Kurdish feminism into Rojava. It's like, it's very big. When you go there, you will see it everywhere. I mean, again, there's no place for women in the revolution. Rather, she is the revolution. They created the science genealogy. Jin means women. So the science of women, there is a women's village called Jinwar. It's where women build everything by themselves, just to show that women can do that. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Entonces, el feminismo kurdo es muy importante, se ve por muchas partes y como va el dicho, no hay lugar para las mujeres en la revolución, sino que ella es la revolución. Algunas cosas, genealogy, gene significa mujer, entonces son las ciencias de mujeres. Jinwar es la aldea de mujeres.
Okay, so they teach every time, no matter civil education, military, self-defense, whatever, everybody who is taught in Rojava, they first teach them they have to take genealogy, women's class, no matter who you are. And the first thing they tell you about patriarchy, you will now kill the inner man in you. Not meaning, it means basically you will kill the patriarch man in you.
Entonces todos cuando estudian tienen que tomar genealogy, la ciencia de mujeres. Todos tienen que aprender eso. Y también enseñan sobre el patriarcado y te dicen mata al hombre interior dentro de ti. O sea, no significa la violencia física, sino la destrucción del patriarcado que tenemos internalizado.
So for instance, obviously when you go to Rojava, it's not all like a paradise. There's still violence against women. There's still a lot of this still going on. One thing they do, especially for domestic violence, is they take the woman to this jinwar, to a woman's place where she can be where she can be like at peace, you know. And according to the basically Google, they said that the biggest fighting force in the world, the biggest women fighting force are basically in Rojava and the PKK in the world.
Entonces, tampoco es un paraíso. Todavía hay problemas todavía, por ejemplo, la violencia doméstica. Entonces, si cuando suceda, la mujer puede ir a Jinwar, puede ir a la aldea de mujeres, donde va a estar segura. Y según Google, según las búsquedas, la Fuerza Armada más grande de mujeres del mundo es esta. Está en Rojava y el PKK.
Go ahead, Nick. And the reason I'm saying that the biggest fighting force, because when the woman is on the same level of man, you know, like fighting, you know, even with weapons, that means she will know how to protect herself. Nobody can be above her.
Entonces, cuando la mujer sabe manejar las armas, también como un hombre, entonces ella sabrá defenderse y nadie la puede subyugar.
So this is just some pictures of the women's village, and then you can go to the next slide, please.
Así se ven fotos del Jinwar, de la aldea de mujeres.
Okay, so I'm closing in with basically there has been Rojava is considered a very international revolution. So we have a lot of revolutionaries coming from all over the world fighting against mainly ISIS.
Y se considera Rojava una revolución bastante internacional. Entonces viene gente internacional a apoyar y a luchar principalmente contra el Estado Islámico.
Yeah, and in 2014, the Yazidi Kurds, Yazidi is it's kind of like an ethno-religious minority, and over 50,000 of them basically got displaced, over 5,000 of them got killed, and 5,000 women and little girls got sold into sex slavery, and over 2,000 of them are still not known where they are.
Entonces, en 2014 pasó el genocidio de los yazidíes. Son una etnia, un grupo como étnico religioso, y también son kurdos. Y había unos, pues el Estado Islámico invadió Bashur y quedaron unos 5,000 asesinados, y había otras 5,000 chicas y mujeres que fueron vendidas como esclavas sexuales. También más de 50,000 yazidíes eran desplazados y se escaparon a un lugar que se llama Jebel Sinjar.
Next, please. So who saved them? The only people who saved them were actually the PKK and the YPG fighters.
Entonces, estos yazidíes, los únicos que los salvaron, que los ayudaron, eran los soldados del PKK y del YPG.
So in this picture, upper left corner, these are all the international fighters. I mean, people from all over Europe, the US. Upper left corner, that's Alina Sanchez from Argentina. She was a doctor. Lower right corner, that's what's her name? Campbell. She's a woman from Britain. And lower left corner, that's the international martyr symbol in Qamishlo city. And it shows the pictures of the people who fought for Rojava.
Entonces se ve la foto de mártires internacionales que vinieron de muchas partes, muchos países europeos, muchos lucharon contra el Estado Islámico. Una de las fotos se llama Alina Sánchez, era una doctora argentina, también una mujer que se llamaba Campbell, era de Gran Bretaña, y de eso se trata el monumento.
Next, please. So as of now, Erdogan, the dictator of Turkey, is basically calling all of Rojava terrorists because of their close ideology to the PKK. He displaced 2 years ago over 500,000 Kurds in Afrin in northwest of Rojava, and over there many has been killed, arbitrarily arrested, kidnapped. A lot of the women, they rape them and take them for sex slaves, killing them, and the international community doesn't care, not Russia or US.
Entonces, Erdogan es el líder de Turquía y él dice que los kurdos son terroristas, según, y invadió Afrin y la violencia que desató, pues, desplazó a más de 500,000 kurdos. Muchos fueron detenidos, secuestrados, muchas mujeres violadas y luego como capturadas o vendidas como esclavas. Todo esto está sucediendo y luego siguen los Estados Unidos, Rusia, la comunidad internacional queda indiferente.
Next, please. So we right now we're doing activism against Turkish products, Turkish like to boycott Turkey's economy, because every money goes into ruining Kurdish basically towns and cities, as you can see in the pictures.
Entonces estamos haciendo activismo en contra de Turquía, un boicot contra los productos turcos, porque ese dinero generado se utiliza contra los kurdos.
Next, please. Okay, this is the last slide, and basically the Kurds have a solidarity for every person, every people that wants to reach autonomy, and there has been many exchanges, for instance, with the Baloch, the Mapuches, the Zapatistas, FARC, basically all the natives of the world. I don't want to say Native American, but the natives of the New World, and anybody who wants to reach autonomy and be self-sufficient. So democratic confederalism have been taught in a lot of those new areas. A lot of the comrades go there to teach it, basically.
Entonces, esa es la última. Entonces, hay mucha solidaridad internacional con el pueblo kurdo. Ha habido muchos intercambios, como los zapatistas, las FARC, los balojes, y muchos indígenas de este continente, como los mapuches, y cualquier persona que busca la autonomía, la autosuficiencia, también ha visitado mucha gente Rojava para aprender sobre esta forma de democracia desde abajo.
Yeah, for instance, one of the guerrillas, she basically is teaching, and she was teaching in Mexico City University. She got invited to talk about democratic confederalism.
Por ejemplo, una mujer fue invitada a venir a la UNAM, creo, para hablar sobre el confederalismo democrático.
And I thank you all for listening so patiently, and I hope I didn't give you guys a headache. And any questions you have for me, I'm ready. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.